play of Cinna takes a very small character from Julius Caesar by William Shakespeare and magnifies his experience in that play.
What attracted me to the play of Cinna was the character. He's a small character in Julius Caesar who's killed for being in the wrong place and being mistaken for somebody else. And that idea of being misunderstood and misrepresented was really quite interesting. We did a lot of rehearsals with Tim Crouch, just exploring this character's insecurities with the world outside.
It's been great working with Jude. What's new for me is that I have a series of these pieces that take a minor Shakespeare character and then tell their story. And I usually perform those pieces myself. So there's been a big voyage of discovery for myself and for Jude and for the team. And those qualities that we saw in Jude that I felt were absolutely right for Cinna. He's so open, he's so optimistic, he has such a smile. And there's also a lot of heart in him. And those are things that are absolutely present in Cinna, I think. Certainly in our Cinna. And then working to sort of clarify those qualities. And also to engage the character with the themes of the play around freedom and around personal expression and words as well. I wrote this play as a stage play before there was any thought about filming it and streaming it and all that stuff. And so it's been very interesting to think about what happens when you film a piece of work.
Working with Tim, we focused mostly on the theatre aspect of it. And it was quite interesting and nice at the same time having Tim in the room. He was also the writer, so you kind of get a perspective of where he's coming from, and his views are quite defined and definite. Working with Rob was probably more freeing. He wasn't the writer, so you could be slightly more creative. But also the beauty of it was, working with Tim allowed me to explore the kind of physicality and the big gestures of Cinna. Whilst on camera, one had to sort of limit the movement.
Action! We're not saying this film is in any way better than the live theatre experience. I would want as many people to see the live theatre experience because that's where it came from. But of course it's not possible to reach as many people with live theatre as it is to using digital media. So what's great is we can talk to lots of people, thousands of people, large numbers of people will come into contact with the project that wouldn't have done if we kept it just as a live theatre performance.
I was fascinated by the idea of doing this because personally, growing up in London as a young man from Africa, theatre was something that was really removed and quite difficult to attain or even understand.
I think it's really important that young people should connect with Shakespeare. I also understand that a lot of young people don't have opportunities to go to the theatre, and sometimes Shakespeare can be quite alienating or quite distant. So this show is about making Shakespeare accessible, particularly the stories of Shakespeare accessible, and there I think is a call to young people.
What the production allows children to do is just be a bit more freer and be braver with their words. The character Cinna is often afraid to write the words he wants to write.
And so there's a great excitement around the material that gets written by each audience who sees this show, who sees it live and who also watches it on the streaming. And to weave into those pieces of writing ideas around where writing exists in society, how important writing is, how important protest is. Cinna is a man who doesn't get involved, who doesn't engage with his writing with the world, and in a way he suffers the consequences of that. And so to get a young audience to think about how their writing might engage with the world became a very important focus for the work.
Why not write these words, a list, a line, a thought? Anything is poetry as long as you can express yourself.
Have you started writing poetry?
Do you know what? I wrote poetry before I started doing Cinna. And the massive thing I've learned is sharing my poetry. Before I used to write it kind of for myself, but doing this production I've spoken about my poetry, I've shared my poetry with friends and family, and realised it's a sharing thing. Sometimes you're scared to share, but sharing is a wonderful thing with poetry.